RUN. It was one of those, I'm going to live my dreams this time mornings at work, where work was bearable. So I had a pep in my step and actually got to work early that day. There I was at my average job that didn't speak to my heart or my soul, bouncing down an empty hallway to get to my average desk, thinking of living this dream that I had since I was 8 years old. Oh, hey, welcome to another episode of the Everybody's Running podcast. You just heard an excerpt of a message I wrote to my sister, a former track and field athlete who has lived most of her life pursuing her passion, being an entrepreneur. I was trying to explain to her the life of fear I was living in and hoping to escape. So, what about you? Have you ever been afraid? I've been afraid most of my life. Can you imagine that? Nah, I don't think you really get it. I'm in my 30s now, so if I live to be as old as my great grandfather, that's 1/3 of my life I've lived in fear. If I've lived to be as old as my father, that means I spent almost 75% of my life being afraid. I was afraid of so many things, big and small, even my lifelong dream of being an athlete. Can you believe that when I look back on my life, I have to admit that there were times I did not run because I was afraid of just becoming a great track and field athlete. So here's what I told my sister. Imagine your dream of doing hair. Then imagine what your life would be like if you spent most of your time not living your passion. Like, you feel me, sis? Like, I'm not really sure if you do because you've always lived your dream. You realized you didn't even need to go to college to live your passion. You went straight from high school into your passion. So let me give you a little science to break down what I'm trying to say. Research shows that our risk of death falls by 17% for each decade if one of our parents lives beyond 70. And since dad died at age 41 and mom hasn't even made it to 70 yet, that means if our parents' age is any indicator of how long we'll live, that I've spent so much of my life being afraid. It took me a long time to start running again because I was so afraid of every little thing. Do we want the next generation to grow up in fear? Do we want to continue to cultivate an environment of fear passed down to our youth? Or do we want to change that? Imagine your boys for a minute being like me. I know they don't look like me. Most of them look like their dads, but imagine them looking like me on the inside, full of fear. It might look a little bit like this. Your eldest son, could you see him growing up, being 25 years old, still afraid of the dark? Imagine your little one, who you know has the spark of being an entertainer. Imagine he just let his artistic flame die out because he was afraid of the power of his voice. Or your middle son. Imagine if it took him 10 years to finish the last 6 credits of his degree just because he was afraid to stand up for himself and tell his parents that he didn't want to become a doctor. He wanted to be a runner. And your baby boy, that would mean that our precious king, who hasn't even been tainted by the world yet, who's barely lived long enough to have memories, who's the purest of all of us with the capacity to become anything his soul desires. Imagine if he looked like me on the inside. That would mean that his life would go something like this. He'd grow up, eventually get a degree, suppress his creativity, never become the athlete he wanted to be, and just sleepwalk through life, stuck in the cycle of doing average things, driving an average car, living in an average house, working an average job that doesn't fulfill his soul. I don't want that for my nephews. I don't want that for anyone. So that's why I'm telling my story. I've let fear stop me time and time again. I've been deathly afraid of what often turned out to be the smallest things. And even at times when I knew I had the capacity to do something amazing, I would start and stall, get stuck, or fall in the middle of a race. We all fall. Like, I hear you telling me that. I hear you, sis. I never got back up, though. And after a while, I was just resolved to flat out give up. But dreams are funny that way. You know, not running started to become a burden. God would show it to me everywhere, in dreams and visions. I would drive to work and get sick just getting off the exit. God would whisper to my heart that I could take the leap and I would be successful. But I still refused to wake up and take action. But you know what God showed me one day? One day, I was on that average job that I drove my average car to on an average morning where I struggled to get out of bed in my average house. And God showed me a clear and undeniable vision. The vision came at a time when I was contemplating becoming the runner I always wanted to be. I was 6 years removed from my last competition, but I was still thinking about getting out there. I mean, I've been thinking and planning for like a whole year. And it's funny when I look at it now because I could have just gone out and did a 20-minute run anytime, anywhere, got started again. But if you live the life in fear like I have, you have a plethora of, I'm going to live my dream this time moments. Moments where your dream pops into your head, into your heart, and it actually helps you stomach through work because you tell yourself, I'm going to get started today. Moments when you know exactly what you want to do and how to plan it, but you make excuses like, well, I think I need to talk to somebody about this first to make sure the plan is right. Or you're in one of those, I'm going to live my dream moments, and you know what you need to do to get the slight edge on all of your slacking, but fear has rooted itself so deep that you're tangled in doubt and you never start. It was one of those, I'm going to live my dream this time mornings at work, where work was bearable. So I had a pep in my step, you know? I actually got to work early that day. I wasn't like late all the time, but I got to work early that day. And there I was at my average job that didn't speak to my heart or my soul, bouncing down an empty hallway to get to my desk, thinking of living the dream I had dreamed since I was 8 years old. Fear was still there. And my dream was still alive in my mind. I could see myself on the path sometimes, but most days I was wondering if I can endure the sacrifice of being an athlete again. If I could endure the wins and the losses, the injury, the time and financial investment. Walking down that hallway to my desk, God showed me a clear vision, so crystal clear that in that empty hallway, all by myself, the white sparkling walls and tile were transformed. And I was no longer in that hallway, but standing confidently behind a podium, looking out to a stadium full of people, kind of like pin relays. There was a line weaving down the aisles and leading up to the lectern so people could come and meet me. It was there in that hallway, on that average day, at that average job, that God showed me a transposing reality. And he told me that all those people in attendance had gathered to hear me speak. Me, the one sibling that's been the most quiet, that hardly ever speaks up. And they came to hear me because I was a runner. That vision awakened the sleepwalker inside of me and activated a passion I've been struggling to get out. That day, I became a runner again. But what I didn't realize was that I was always running. Like Jonah, who ran away from going to Nineveh, I too was running in the wrong direction. Behind all the things that hindered me from getting to my dream was one common theme: FEAR. You see, that average job, an average car became comfortable. It justified my fears, and it kept me sleepwalking through life. Everybody's running. I truly believe that. And I hope you're running towards your purpose and not away from it. If you are, there's still time to stop and run in a new direction. The word run asks the same question God is asking all of us. Are you in?